There's something we all rely on every single day. Common sense. We treat it like this trusty guide, right? A shared map that helps us get through life. But here's a thought. Is that map always pointing us in the right direction? Or could it sometimes be leading us straight into a dead end?
And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Is that gut feeling, that thing everybody knows? Is it actually some kind of collective wisdom holding us all together? Or is it just a convenient mask for our biases, a way to justify how things are? We're going to dig into both sides of this powerful and pretty much invisible force.
Okay, so to kick things off, it's really important to get one thing straight. Common sense isn't inherently bad. Not at all. I mean, our society would seriously struggle to function without it. A huge chunk of what we call common sense is really just this collection of shared social norms. Think of it like our social autopilot.
Yeah, these norms are kind of like the invisible architecture of our daily lives. They're not laws, right? Nobody wrote them down in a book, but they are the assumed rules of the game. Waiting your turn in line, saying thank you, not screaming your head off in a quiet library. It's all the stuff we just know we're supposed to do.
So, why do we even need this autopilot? Well, for one, it makes the world predictable. It helps us stick together because we all have these shared expectations. Plus, and this is a big one, it seriously cuts down on our cognitive load. Just imagine if you had to figure out the rules for every single conversation from scratch. It'd be exhausting. All of this, at the end of the day, helps keep things orderly.
So yeah, the bottom line is that these shared understandings are like the grease in the wheels of society. They're what make millions of interactions go smoothly every single day. But, and this is a huge but, what happens when that shared understanding, that powerful common sense, is just wrong?
And that brings us to a really critical question. What happens when the group's common sense goes completely against what your own eyes are telling you? And this isn't just some hypothetical thought experiment. It was actually the focus of one of the most famous and honestly kind of mind-blowing experiments in modern psychology.
The whole setup, which came from a social psychologist named Solomon Asch, was so simple it was genius. He brought people in for what he said was a basic vision test, but what he was really testing was something else entirely. How group pressure can literally bend and reshape what a person thinks.
So, people were shown cards, just like this one, and asked a super simple question. Which of the three lines on the right, A, B, or C, is the same length as the line on the left? I mean, take a look. The answer is obviously C, right? It's not a trick question. When people do this test by themselves, they get it right pretty much 100% of the time. But this is where Asch introduced his brilliant twist.
I want you to imagine you're in that room. The first person looks at the card and confidently says A. Then the next person says A, and the person after that, and the person after that, they all agree the answer is A. Now it's your turn. Your own eyes are practically screaming that the answer is C, but every single person before you said A. What do you do? What do you say? The results were just wild. On average, about a third of the people in the hot seat just went along with the group's obviously wrong answer. And get this, over the course of the whole experiment, a whopping 75% of people conformed at least one time. They went against their own eyes, saying an answer out loud that they knew was wrong, all just to fit in.
And this powerful phenomenon came to be known as the Asch effect. It's just this stark, incredible demonstration that our desire to belong can be so strong it literally overrides our own senses. And this is where common sense starts to get really dangerous, right? When it stops being about a shared, correct understanding and becomes about pressure to accept a shared mistake. But look, the problem isn't just about pressure from other people. Sometimes, the most flawed common sense is the stuff that comes from inside our own heads. Our brains are hardwired with these amazing mental shortcuts that, are usually super helpful. But they can also set these really sneaky traps for our thinking. Psychologists have a name for these shortcuts. They're called heuristics. Think of them as mental rules of thumb that let us make quick decisions without having to analyze every single piece of data. And they are absolutely essential for getting by in a complicated world. But, and it's a big but, they have a major downside.
And that's the trade-off, right there. On one hand, these shortcuts are fast, they're efficient, they save us a ton of mental energy. But on the other hand, they are super prone to making the same mistakes over and over again. They can lead to some really irrational judgments and create what we call cognitive biases, which are basically like bugs in our brain's software.
And here are a few of the biggest offenders. You've got confirmation bias. That's when we only look for information that proves we're right and ignore everything else. Then there's the status quo bias, which tricks us into thinking that just because things are a certain way, they should be that way. Implicit biases. Whew, those are the unconscious stereotypes that mess with our judgments without us even knowing it. And groupthink. That's basically the Ash effect happening in a meeting, where everyone wants to get along, so nobody dares to disagree. All of these can feel like common sense in the moment, but trust me, they're traps.
So, where does that leave us? If common sense can be this flawed, should we just throw it all out? Well, not so fast. The idea isn't to abandon it completely. It's more about changing how we see it. We need to stop thinking of it as some absolute truth and start seeing it as a powerful tool, one that needs to be handled with care.
Look, you can't really live without these mental shortcuts, but you can't just blindly trust them either. The real skill is learning to recognize when that autopilot is doing a good job and when it's time to take the controls yourself. It's all about calibrating it. So here's a simple little toolkit you can use. The next time you feel that really strong pull of common sense, just pause and ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, is this based on a real fact or is it just a gut feeling? 2, whose common sense is this anyway? Is it really universal, or does it just happen to benefit a certain group? And finally, number 3, how flexible is this belief? If I saw new evidence that contradicted it, would I actually be willing to change my mind? And that right there is the crucial difference. A healthy dose of common sense is a starting point for asking questions. A dangerous one is a dead end for thinking. The very second that everybody knows becomes an excuse to stop being curious, to stop checking the facts, and to stop listening, that's the moment wisdom turns into prejudice.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. What's one assumption, one of those obvious truths you live by every single day, that might be worth putting through that little 3-question test? Because at the end of the day, the healthiest mind isn't the one that's always sure it's right. It's the one that's always willing to question what it thinks it knows.